So, welcome everyone to the Course of Love book reading book group written by Perron. This is what it looks like. So, this is an ongoing book group, and um, if you have not seen any of the previous chapters, the readings of the previous chapters, you can watch them or listen to them on YouTube at Kimberly 8th Day. And so tonight, I will start. It's page 283 in the book, and chapter 13. It's called The Final Call. Page 283. The Final Call. The final call of this treatise is, in contrast to those put forth previously, a personal call from me to you. This is Jesus speaking, or Yeshua. By now you have seen that your fears of losing yourself to God were unfounded. By now you have seen that yourself does not need to stand separate and alone in order to be fulfilled under the mantle of individuality. You have been told to put on a new mantle, a new identity. What does this mean? Now that you have been made ready, I am ready to return you to yourself. Capital S. Now that you have been made ready, it is time for us to have a personal relationship. We have, within these lessons, taken you far from your personal self. And I, as your teacher, have all but discounted the personal self I experience in relationship with you. Now, in unity, we are ready to be personal again. While the personal self is the subject of the next treatise, this is my invitation to you, specifically to enter into a holy and personal relationship with me, specifically. While you are here, you have a persona. While this persona is no longer an ego self, but a Christ self, it is still a persona. This is the you who laughs and loves and cries and shares with friends in a world now different than the one you once perceived. I know of this world, and I am here to guide you through it. I, too, am friend to you. I am the corrector of false thinking because I lived among you as a thinking being. Think not that I was different than you, and you will realize that we are truly one in being with our Father. As you move into the world with the end of the time of separation and the beginning of the time of unity taking place around you, practice the beliefs that have been put forth in this treatise. Know that in the time of unity, the truth will be shared by all. Call upon your relationship with me to aid you as I call upon you to assist me in calling all our brothers and sisters to their return to unity. We call to one another in gratitude. This is the attitude of the wholehearted, the place from which all calls are sounded and received, the place where the true thinking of those united in mind and heart arises. Gratitude is recognition of the state of grace in which you exist here and remain forever beyond all time and the passing of all form. It is an attitude of praise and thankfulness that flows between us now. The light of heaven shines not down upon you, but is given and received in equal exchange by all who in creation exist together in oneness eternal. Forget not who you truly are, but forget not also to be in joy in your experience here. Remember that the seriousness with which you once looked at life is of the ego. Drape your persona in a mantle of peace and joy. Let who you are shine through the personal self who continues to walk this world a while longer. Listen for my voice as I guide you to your purpose here and linger with you in this time to end all time. We are here together in love to share love. This is not such a frightening task. Let fear go and walk with me now. Our journey together is just beginning as we return to the premise put forth in a treatise on the art of thought, that of the elevation of form. Just feel that for a second. A treatise on the personal self, the third treatise. Chapter 1. True and false representation. The personal self exists as the self you present to others. This is the only way in which the personal self will continue to exist, following the completion and the integration of this course. Previously, the personal self that you presented to others represented an ego self who you believed yourself to be. Now the ego has been separated from the personal self so that you may claim your personal self again and present to others a true representation of who you are. While still a representation, there is a huge difference between a true representation and a false representation. The false representation of the ego as the self is what has led to the world you see. I read that one again. The false representation of the ego as the self, capital S, is what has led to the world you see. A true representation of the self, capital, that you are is what we work toward in this treatise and will lead to true vision and to a new world. A representation of the truth not only reveals the truth, but becomes the truth. A representation of what is not the truth reveals only illusion and becomes illusion. Thus, as your personal self becomes a representation of the truth, it will become who you are in truth. As with much of our previous work, the first step in advancing towards this goal is in developing an awareness of what is not the truth, while the ability to distinguish between the true and the untrue has been repeatedly discussed as the ability to separate fear from love. Further guidelines are needed. You who have spent most of your life representing the ego have but given a face to illusion and made it seem real. When I say that you have represented the ego, what I mean is that the personal self, as represented by your body, while adhering to the ego's thought system, became an ego self or an unreal self. An unreal self cannot help but exist in an unreal reality. It is as if you have been an actor upon a stage. The part you play as unreal as the setting on which you play it. Yet there is a you who has been playing the part. A part that, while developed under the ego's direction, still allowed for bits and pieces of who you are to be seen, felt, and acknowledged. The ego thought system has been replaced by the thought system of unity, and you are left perhaps feeling unsure of the part you are now to play. There is not one of you who has not begun to experience the transformation that is in truth occurring. Although you may not as yet have seen the changes you are experiencing as the transformation to which you have been called. These changes perhaps seem like little things, a change in attitude here, a change in behavior there. But I assure you that these changes are mighty and are but the result of the change in cause that has occurred through your learning of this course. I began this treatise by saying that the personal self exists as the self you present to others, and that this is the only way in which the personal self will now continue to exist. This statement implies and acknowledges that your previous belief in a personal self who existed as more than a representation. While when joined with the truth, this representation will be acknowledged as what it is and as the truth of who you are. To erroneously have seen your former representation of illusion as the truth of who you are is what has led to your perception of the world of suffering and strife that you have seen. This change that is in the process of coming about has to do with awareness. When you become aware of the personal self as a representation, you become aware of the self whom the personal self is representing. To have believed that the personal self as a representation of the ego was who you were was an illusion that blocked awareness of your true self, capital, from your mind. Your true self is now ready to come out of the mist of illusion in which it was hidden and to be represented in truth by the form you occupy and have previously seen as the reality of yourself. To say that the personal self will now exist only as the self you present to others is to say that the personal self will now cease to be seen as your reality. To say that the personal self has only existed as the self you presented to others in the past is quite a different statement and has a totally different meaning. The personal self you once presented to others as who you were was a self who existed in time, the self who believed that the past made up the self of the present, and that the self of the present made up the self of the future. The personal self you presented to others in the past was a chosen self and never a whole self, as evidenced by the variety of selves you saw yourself to be. The personal self of the past was a self of roles, each one as learned as that which an actor might portray. You saw nothing more amiss in being a professional self in one instance and a social self in another. A parent in one role and a friend in another than you did in defining a past self, a present self, and a future self. The greatest distinction of all was that between the private self and the public self, as if who you were to yourself and who you presented yourself to be could be two completely different selves. Even within the illusion in which you existed, there was a self kept hidden. To become a whole self, capital, with no parts hidden, a self with no parts in truth, is the task that I set before you and am here to help you fulfill. I can do this because I accomplished this, both in life and in all time and time beyond time, making you, along with me, the accomplished. As has already been said, the accomplished self is the Christ. Your remembrance of the Christ self has abolished the ego self and allows us to begin the lessons of the personal self. We could not begin the curriculum here because you would have been unable with the lessons of this course to distinguish the personal self from the ego self. There is a danger even now in focusing upon the self of the body, as this self has been so long bound to the ego self. Even with the ego once and finally vanquished, the patterns of the ego's thought system remain to be undone. This is atonement, or I call atonement. We work now to correct the errors of the past in the present, the only place where such work can be done. We work with what we have, a form fully able to represent the truth, and in so doing, we bring the truth to life and life to the truth. That ends chapter 1. Just pause for a moment. Allow all of that to completely seep in. The word becomes flesh in this way. So we're going to pause here for tonight and pick up where we left off next time. Same place, same time, same day, every Monday at 8 Eastern Standard Time on the same link as you're joining me now. So thank you, everyone who joins, who listens to these videos, and most of all for all the blessing known and unknown to us within these pages. So thank you. Be blessed in always. Thank you.